maybe an inch and a half. It started at 3 and then it all hell broke loose.
We got more rain than we did.
Yeah.
It was virtually,
We got.
it was virtually none.
But on Saturday,
So anyway, again.
yeah, oh,
I got all this
jeez.
and I'm like, will you-
Yeah, it really pounded her down.
Did it really?
We got more
Oh,
rain.
it takes you to another
Okay, is it
on Saturday.
We got more rain in June this year than we did.
Say 3, that was like about 3 o'clock.
So I can't.
O'clock, yeah, or a little after 3 o'clock.
On Saturday.
A year ago. And that's not
After
I'm
three.
making up some like a
And
list.
standard.
Yours are- yours are-
I was in a meeting where it's like, now to get a truck.
And what's some?
So the baby has her.
Oh, really?
So very good.
And
Half an hour later.
Here, right around the car. But then they called and said,
I can't remember.
"Yeah." So it'll go down, back down.
Feel that.
And I
Good
can't have-
God, looks for that.
Live and recording.
All right, perfect. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our committee of the whole meeting for this June 27th. Appreciate everyone coming and sitting in this morning. I would like to remind everyone that the meeting is being recorded and live streamed. And I would like to now call the roll. Please raise your hand, state your presence when I call your name. Mayor Watson,
I'm here.
Deputy Mayor Nelson,
Present.
Councilor Report,
Present.
Councilor Johnson,
Present.
and staff, CEO Elena Arthur. Acting Clerk Mark T. Hardwick.
Good morning.
Morning. Interim Treasurer Paul Kramer. Morning, Paul. Fire Chief Chuck Pedersen. Morning, Chuck. Temporary Chief Building Official Don Hellman. Morning, Don. Manager of Public Works Jake Godwin.
Morning.
Morning, Jake. And Manager Recreational Facilities Mike Wood. Morning, Mike. And last but not least, Librarian CEO Megan Pearson. Morning, Megan. All right, lovely. So I would like to call the roll. I call the roll. So absent is Christine. She's not with us this morning, but we do have a report from her that will be presented by one of the other staff members. So with the quorum of the committee in attendance, I call the meeting to order. The land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that we are on the treaty and traditional territory of the Mississauga Sorry. We offer our gratitude to the First Peoples for their care for and teachings about our earth and relations. May we honor those teachings. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest with any of the council? Seeing none, may I have an adoption of the agenda for today, please. Councilor Report, Councilor Johnson, any questions? All in favor? Passed. All right, thank you very much. So to start things off on a really positive note, delegations, petitions, and presentations. We have certificates of breakthrough. 3 of our local people in our township, and that would be Marshall Abbott, Sandy McMullen, and Rob Payne, rescued a father and son from a canoe accident in Algonquin Park on May 13th, 2023. So we do have certificates for each of them as a thank you from the township and acts of bravery. So unfortunately, they didn't show up today, but we will make sure that they do receive these certificates all stamped and signed. So thank you very much, everyone. We really appreciate what you did for our community and what we did for those people. And again, thank you from all of us. So we'll move right on to section 6. And if they do show up later in the meeting, then we still will present the certificates to them before you can get a picture if they so desire. Okay, report from the manager's updates. Now, I believe that everyone has had a chance to look through these, so we won't need to read them over again. If there's any highlights or any changes from the managers, please by all means go ahead and let us know what is upcoming or what has changed or what you're doing. Other than that, we will just do a quick highlight of it and open up the council for questions. So we'll start out with 6.1, and that will be the public library of Maggie. Go ahead, thank you. Your choice.
I never have before, so I might as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I will not read it through, but if anybody has any questions, I answer them.
All right, well, yes.
I read with great interest and I heard from our MPP when the time came about the community grant that the library board, I guess, had applied for. So just wondering what that grant is for, how that, how those funds are going to be spent, maybe you can tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so I do have like a full budget breakdown if anybody's interested, but generally speaking, it's the seniors community grant and it's about 10,000, 11,000. I would say about 4,000 of it is for technology. So we're going to update our desktop computers, expand the computer lab. The idea is to make the computer lab more of an accessible learning hub for not only seniors, but everybody who uses the library. The remainder of the funds are for library furniture, to update that side of the library that we recently painted and rearranged. Some of the furniture is a little old and difficult for seniors to get in and out of and move around and use for our programming. So furniture, programming funds, and the last little bit is for outreach wages.
Just a quick follow-up question. So I don't have it in front of me, but I know that when the library comes to council at budget time, last year, as has been the cases in previous years, there's usually been a monetary allocation and in capital for a new computer, which is kind of budgeted for every year to keep them current. So
Yeah.
do you see that that those funds will be not used, like the council funding for a new computer will not be used, given the fact that there's the significant
Yeah.
technology upgrades?
That's a good question. This year we will absolutely still use those funds. We'll be able to, right now we have 2 public computers in the library for patron use, which is not very much. I think 3 years ago we had at least 6 in the computer lab, and they've just slowly but surely died. So the funds for the grant are enough to cover 3 to 4 new computers. Our circulation computer that we use to manage our entire collection, the public catalog computer also needs to be replaced. So we're just going to replace as many of those as we can, as well as the, like, using the annual budget we get. Anyways.
Thank you.
Through the chair, thanks Maggie for your report. Maggie, just on that, I was over one night and witnessed all of them computers getting full use.
Yeah.
And does that happen? What happens now when you don't have the computer? You gotta wait. Is that what happens? They wait people that come in to use the computer have to wait then for the person to finish, or?
Good question. So I would say right now, it doesn't happen too often that we have a 3rd or 4th person waiting for computer use. I have had situations where public come into the kitchen office to use our computers in there if they need to access something, because I don't want to say no. That being said, part of the programming that we hope to do using the grant money is a computer class, teaching people how to use some of our existing resources. So we would not be able to run those, for example, without 4 computers in the computer lab, because then we're in the kitchen for some class. But yeah, sometimes people have to wait, not generally, but sometimes.
Thank you.
Councilor Johnson.
To the chair, there's a question here, but Martina, I'm gonna ask you, every term of council in the past anyways, they seem to upgrade the computers, and then there's always some left over. Are we got any of them around that they can go in the library?
I'm actually going to turn that over to Paul. I believe he's private, or yeah, I don't know what the status of our computers are these days, so.
Through the chair to Councillor Johnson, we were looking at transitioning all of our staff into laptops, and therefore we have some additional desktops that we could provide, and I did let Maggie know that. Unfortunately, we've been really trying to bring a new IT person in, so I haven't moved anything as of yet, but as I just mentioned, I think we will be, see that person come on shortly, and then we'll do a full review. Some of our desktops are still under warranty, so I didn't want to start transitioning into laptops if we didn't need them, but with COVID and the ability to work from home, I think most of the staff now have a laptop, but to do a full inventory, I really wanted to have that person on board. So hopefully we'll have that person in the next couple of weeks, but I did let Maggie know if we had something, we would surely share.
Okay, good, good. I do know that. I don't know if they just turn it up. Do know other times change the computer after 4 years. Okay, So there might be something available there.
Yeah, and then the problem is just the space, because our computer lab is pretty small.
Well, the summer's coming, we go outside, eh?
Yeah.
All right, any other questions from council? Again,
I'll make sure
motion
you
to
receive
receive
the
the
report.
report. Good, thanks. Councilor Johnson, Deputy Mayor Nelson, all in favor? Excellent, thank you very much, Maggie. Just before I proceed on, and I've been asked this to start, and I apologize, and it would be with permission of council, is there any of staff that has anything coming up in the next couple of hours that they need to get away, leave early? We can bump their report up. If not, we'll just follow through in the order. See no hands? Okay, perfect. All right, then let's just proceed on. Recreation facilities, Mike Moon. Thank you very much, Mike.
Thank you and good morning. I guess you guys have my report in front of you. If you have any questions, I'm gonna highlight a couple little things. Our South Park project, our revitalization project, it is coming to an end here shortly. The only outstanding item is the tennis court surface painting. We've had a number of calls in frames, trying to coordinate that with their painters, but their painters have not gotten back to them on an exact date. We are pressuring them to get this done in order, and so we can do a grand opening. So hopefully that is in the near future. The other part is our golf deal listings. So I brought a report forward to purchase a new smaller parks trailer and list our golf deal items. Our reserves for the golf deal items was going to be $3,500, and then the rest of the trailer we covered through equipment reserves, but through the sales of the gov deals, we were able to get $7,600. So we were able to cover the cost of the trailer and then some. So that was great news. And I think that's pretty well it for now. Other questions?
Excellent. Yes, Councilor Johnson.
That's through the chair. Getting back to that pickleball. Now, it said here that we're going to have a meeting with pickleball users about going the courts. Now, is there team, like different groups that want to be involved, or just anybody out in the street?
Right now, there's two individuals that have approached me, and we had a meeting in regards to trying to create some leagues and use for that program. They also gave us interest in the sense that the day that we do a grand opening, they would like to organize a demonstration as well, so that people can be there and see what the game is all about as well. So we've met a couple times now and had some correspondence. So they're very eager to get at it and do some public awareness and promote the whole world. I'm very hopeful.
Excellent, thank you. Councilor Ward.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just a question on the small leak of the ice surface floor at the Douro Community Center. And is it small that right now and then going to progress into something substantial in the next few months or?
That all depends. It's very tricky with the floor. In the past, we've had leaks in the floor. Some are smaller, and we put in a ring seal probe, which is essentially 4 pails of a solution that you mix into the floor that has granular items in it, and it seals any little leaks. So we did that. We put 3 of the 4 pails in prior. It did stop leaks for a year. When we took the ice out, when you take the ice out, the problem is the floor expands and contracts with like the frost from underneath. So it creates new leaks, given the age of the floor. It's original floor, so it was about 40 years old. So this one, so then the following year, we had a substantial leak. We were able to identify the area that it was in, and we jackhammered the floor and replaced the piping. This one is a lot smaller in nature. It's only maybe a liter of fluid every week. tops. That's not a lot considering the amount of piping that's in the floor. So we're just trying to monitor areas where we can see moisture in the floor to find it. So ideally, we would like to find it and jackhammer it. The alternate solution is, if it keeps persisting, is putting our last pail of the rinse seal pro in. The simpler refrigeration is coming today, but they tomorrow we're going to investigate a little bit more.
Deputy Mayor Nelson, then Councilor Johnson.
Yeah, through the chair, thanks, Mike, for your report. Something I just want to pass on to you and for you and staff and also council. It's kind of nice to hear. I had 3 people come up to me just as of lately and say how great the park looks, how nice the facilities are looking down there with the new bathrooms and all the work that we put into it. So instead of hearing all the negative stuff, it's nice to pass on some nice stuff. And that was from three different people that come and congratulated or wanted to congratulate the township on what we've done there and past council as well. So anyway, so thanks, Mike, and thanks for your report.
Councilor Johnson.
Through the chair. Now, we're running roller skating over the rink.
Through the chair, yes, we have a regular rental of roller derby. So they rent every Tuesday evening for 3 hours, and then they have their annual, well, they have about 3 or 4 events booked for this year. I think they've had 2 of them now, where they actually play a game in an event, and it's been filmed on for people. And then there's been interest in public roller skating, so we've run 2 events thus far, and we're looking at running a few more this summer.
So we're going to advertise that big time, and I think there is interest that there's people more. Now, what about, you bring your own blades? There's no extra ones around or anything?
No, not at this time. If it's, we could potentially look at that in the future, rentals, but there's substantial cost to.
I understand that, yeah. And sometimes if you even matter that if everybody's got any old blades you're not using, then have them there just for people to use, leave it free. Okay, I'm glad to hear that because for years, they wouldn't let us do that.
Yeah,
And I don't know how they changed their mind, but anyway, for years, it said we can not roller skate on valet service.
yeah.
On the floors.
And roller derby's been going there for, I want to say at least 7 years now. So they've had a number of events. So I haven't noticed over those years any issues. The only issue sometimes is our lines that we paint down for the ball hockey. They take a little bit of wear and tear, and they'll need a touch up throughout the season. But other than that, no damage to the actual floor surface.
I guess the last question I want to ask you is that how are we making advertising on the boards and the arena and both arenas?
Yeah.
We got a program going.
We are in the middle of working on that. We were working on creating a packages and page and a promotion page, but since reviewing all of that and reviewing our actual advertising policy, our advertising policy was created in 2013, so we're in the middle of updating that as well. I suspect that will come to the next council meeting for sure.
Mayor Watson.
Through the chair, thanks for your report, Mike. One of the things that you noted in your report rather is that you, as you often do, just do the rollout of portable toilets at various parks and public areas within the community. It was brought to my attention that potentially we may not need the portable toilets down at the Crow's Landing Wharf. Because when that was initially put in, and I vaguely remember, in I want to say 2018, the installation of that particular portable toilet was due to challenges with people abusing the area. And often that was attributed to fishing, people who are fishing off the public water. Of course, COVID hit, and put that temporary ban in, and now people, we made that a permanent solution to, excuse me, prevent fishing off that public water. So I wonder if the problem still exists, and if that's something that we need to be putting resources on now or in the future. Can you speak to that at all?
To be honest, that the wharfs typically weren't part of our rotation, as you're aware, to put portable washrooms there. I was asked a few years ago, likely 2015, as you say, to put them there. So we've just done that going forward. Just wharf. As for any misuse, I have not heard anything of that nature there for it. Back to me anyways, and neither from our suppliers that post that there, so.
Sorry, I should clarify, the misuse was the fact that people were just going to the bathroom on people's lawns in absence of the portable toilets,
Oh,
right?
okay.
Because they were there fishing all day, had nowhere to go.
Okay.
That's what I'm
Okay,
referencing.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I haven't no idea of that.
So
That's
do,
the story.
do we monitor, like, I'm assuming that the contractor comes and pumps them and cleans them on a regular basis. Do we have a sense as to how much those facilities are being used throughout the season? Again, I'm just wondering if they need to be there. If the original problem was due to anglers, fishing off the wharf, and now there are no anglers fishing off the wharf, then does that portable toilet need to be there, right? And can we find some savings by removing that completely?
I can surely contact their supplier for those and see what their thoughts are and what the use is for sure, and monitor it and report back.
Yeah, I mean, if we're in a contract for the season, then so be it, but I think it's something to take into consideration when we're deploying those facilities in future years and future budgets.
Any other questions, comments from staff? Just a couple from me, if I may, Mike. Thank you, first of all, the wedding that was out here 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it was asked that they were gonna come Thursday and decorate, and the wedding was gonna be Friday, so they wanted to know if the grass could be all cut and trimmed early on Thursday so that they could decorate and not have grass trimmings or whatever all over their decorations, and that was done, and I got, send a thank you. I'm very, very impressed how well it looked, so that was certainly nice to hear. And the other question that I had, and I think I did ask about it already, but I'll just mention it again. And the question came from 2 businesses just up the street here. The portable washroom that's in the park, nobody seems to know, says they're always either stopping at the gas station or the grocery store, to use your bathroom, there's there's one down here, but there's nothing really down the side or in through the fire hall. And they were both asking if there's any way we could put, even one of those angle signs when we got out in front of the fire department, just to say, that there is a porta potty in there. I don't know, it's kind of a stretch, but I said I would bring it up. So anyway, just for thought, I don't need an answer on it, just for thought. Other than that, thank you very much, and I'll entertain a motion to receive the report with thanks. Councilor Rohr, Mayor Watson, all in favor? Thanks very much, Mike.
Thank you.
Okay, rolling right along here and fine. Public Works, Jake, you're up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, through the chair. I won't read the whole report. I'll just touch on a couple of items. I did attend the Good Roads Convention with some of the council members. We completed our interviews for the seasonal staff and have seasonal staff in place. Our roadside brushing projects that were capital projects are completed for the spring. There is a cutoff date in April that we can no longer do brushing activities, so we will follow up in the fall to complete anything that is outstanding. We've done our complete grading of all the gravel roads. The calcium applications are complete, minus the few or various roads that need gravel. Once the gravel application is done, we will put the calcium application on. A couple of our capital projects are underway: Division Road and the Dummer 4th line and Center Dummer Road. We've completed ditching on Center Dummer and the 4th line, as well as the culvert replacements. Crews are now on Division Road and the 7th line of Durham, doing the ditching and any culvert repairs or replacements. Touched on calcium, we've installed the docks, crows and krakens. And on the waste side of things, we had a household hazardous waste event in May, on May 27th, which everything went smoothly, and the next event is scheduled for August 12th at the Hallsman transfer station. That's about it. If there's any questions from council, I'm happy to answer.
Question?
Through the chair, on division, when you say you're doing ditching there, I see the ditching on the autonomy side. Is that done by us? Like there's a certain role that we do both sides and they do both sides?
That's correct. We maintain from the 5th line of Douro to County Road 38.
This was closer to the 4th line.
Yeah, so we're ditching between the 5th line and the 3rd line. We're doing that's a capital project between Douro 5th line and 3rd line. So
Okay.
we're ditching, culvert replacements and gravel and resurfacing. So yeah, it's a coordinated project between us and OSM, so.
Any other questions? Comments? As your motion to proceed with thanks?
Yes,
Council
please.
Ward, Deputy Mayor Nelson. All in favor?
Thanks for the report, Jake.
Carried. Thank you very much. All right. Fire services. Chuck, you're up. Thank you.
Good morning. Few things to add, and I don't usually talk too long, but I'm gonna take this soapbox opportunity on a little bit of fire prevention side. But first off, I just want to update everyone on our burn ban, because I'm sure you're getting calls the same as we are. So we're in a burn ban basically because we're in a provincial regulation restricted fire zone. So based on the conditions that we had, we would normally not have a fire ban on. But because the province has us in a restricted fire zone, our ban just stays on to try to keep it a little bit cleaner and simpler with the messaging. So if the conditions are like they are today, and when the province removes their ban, ours will be removed at the same time. So that's kind of the messaging out there that we hope that we're getting out, that you could also help with that. Our new pumper has arrived. We did orientation training last night. The goal is to have it fully in service next Tuesday. It will be making its public debut at the Douro Canada Day Parade, so come out and check it out. It's a great looking truck, and it'll serve us well, and a little bit of a different model than we've had in the past, so it's exciting, and we hope it's kind of the flagship of our future pumpers. So we're gonna get into our fire prevention stuff a little bit, so bear with me, but our public educator attended the Ontario Fire Marshal's SAFER, which is smoke alarms for every resident. They had a launch. This was a 2-day event focusing on just basically almost locking everyone into a room and just trying to get strategies on how to get these messages to stick and how we can get the life saving of smoke alarms. Only working smoke alarms will be effective in saving your life. In 2022, and this is part of the reason why this launch was created, there was 133 fire-related deaths in Ontario, and that's the highest in over 2 decades. Between 2010 and 2018, the number ranged from 74 a year to 104. So it's quite a significant jump. Based on surveys, most Ontarians believe that they have 5 minutes or more to escape their homes when a fire occurs. In reality, studies suggest that there's 6 minutes or less. We're in a battle to get our fire safety messages to resonate. The Ontario Fire Service has struggled over the decades to get working smoke alarms in every home. Even when a homeowner required a smoke alarm outside all sleeping areas on every floor, at that time it was about $10 a piece. And we still struggle. With the life-saving changes in the building code in 2015 to add strobe lights to smoke alarms, and now it requires to have multiple smoke alarms in every home, being in each bedroom, outside all sleeping areas, and on every level. And some now being combined with carbon monoxide alarm requirements. Those type of alarms are around $170 each. So that's a huge cost increase to the homeowner, and their 10-year life expectancy from that 2015 date is quickly approaching. And we all know that time flies a lot sooner than you think, and people that have that smoke alarm that's getting to 10 years, they probably have no idea that it's been 10 years already. So we are working with the building department. We've done this over the last little while. We're trying to send out notices based on the construction dates that they're coming due to their 10 years, just to try to remind them as well. So saying all this, I hope you can help spread the word and for you to understand and support our future initiatives that we are working on to ensure all of our residents have compliant working smoke alarms. So switching gears a little bit to our legislative firefighter certification, we did submit our first round of legacy applications and we were successful in the audit process. So everyone got what we asked them to get. It was kind of a test phase for us to see exactly, to make sure that they were approving what we submitted. So there will be a second and final round that will be submitted by September. From those results, then we'll fully understand the financial impact for us to meet the provincial regulation for certification. A report in that summary will be coming back to council later this year. Our public educator worked at the library to have an opportunity to have a session focusing on fire smart initiatives to the Ministry of Natural Resources Forestry Division and a little bit on emergency management and preparedness as well. This is a success and we'll be working on more types of these sessions. When you look at the call volume, considering last May we had over double the calls for a typical month due to that storm that we had impact our community. Over a month by month comparison, we're still tracking slightly higher as our call volume, but still within reason. But our annual inflation is still moving that way. It just was impacted by that anomaly last year. So just when you look at those stats, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Through the chair, thanks for your report, Chuck. Something a little bit off topic or off, well, it is. During the Dreco last summer, we had trees all come down, and especially in the county forest. And I was actually up there a couple of times this spring, and some work has been done through the county forest. And I was thinking about this as far as fire prevention or fire. There's some sections up through there you cannot get through at all. I assume that this mandate would fall under the county. Are you aware of that, or I think through us and I believe the ministry actually look after the forest protection or fire protection up there. Is that right? Or
yeah, so through the chair to deputy mayor. Yeah, I've been up in there and the road blocked by many of the trees that are still down. The county does have a forestry plan for that facility that they work on with, cleaning, logging, and all that sort of thing. This was obviously a huge impact to that area. I'm not exactly sure at this point how they're going to deal with that approach. A lot of the stuff has been cleaned up by the users, if you will, at this point. But yes, not to say that we don't want to be proactive in that, but we do have agreements with the MNRF because we do find that area is very challenging to access. So we do pay a small amount every year for MNRF to protect that northern section of that area because there's really no access or very limited access. So in the southern part, we did change their area a little bit smaller because with the addition of our Argo and the grass fire unit and the equipment that we're adding to our the forestry pump, we felt like we could take a little bit of that chunk away. But if they are in that area or other areas, because we have a working agreement with them, our rates for deployment are less. So I don't hope that answers your question, but we'll certainly look into the county to see what their plan is moving forward on mitigating that. There will be a large fire load there as everything starts to decompose. So
just to follow up through the chair. So have you been talking with the county on this, Chuck, or not really?
Through the chair to deputy mayor, yeah, I haven't been specifically talking to the county since the impact of this.
Right.
But I know that we've worked together before, looking for reviewing and commenting on their action plans with the forest. So we'll certainly follow up with them and just seeing how they're going to address the issues that are happening there now.
Sure. Thanks, Chuck.
Any other questions?
Yeah, to the chair. Chuck, get back to the fire ban. Now, some, they can have campfires.
So yeah, through the chair, Councilor Johnson, the Selwyn is not in a restricted fire zone. Neither is, Catawanic, I believe, obviously says Montague and Aspen, Norwood. So it's us and Havelock and then north, Trend Lake, North Portland. Those are all in the restricted fire zone. Selwyn is not, they're outside.
I checked and they weren't.
Yeah.
That they said that zone 136 or something was.
Yeah.
37 or something, they were.
Yeah, so they're not even in the zone, they're just, they're not in the MNRF zones. Once you get into the more populated area and less forested area, the zones don't apply. So we're kind of the bottom of this area that it comes into zero.
So when it's on the radio every,
Yeah.
for every 5 to 10 minutes, with the band across Ontario. So is every jurisdiction every have their own jurisdiction on what they can put the band on and off?
Yeah, so through the chair, so how it works is the province has broken their restricted fire zones into all those numbered zones, and they can put on restricted fire zones in any of those areas. Just before we put our ban on, we put a ban on due to the smoke conditions, because we didn't want to add more problems to the air quality. We were being prepared to take ours off Friday because everything had cleared out. And then I think it was 1 a.m. Friday morning, the province put us into that. So before that, the next zone north was in 1 or 2 north of us was already in a restricted fire zone. And then they just added us into it. So they can take them off one parcel at a time. That right now they've basically put all of their zones into restricted fires. So I know it doesn't maybe make sense to us locally because of we're not in conditions like that. And if we had control over it ourselves, we wouldn't be in a ban, but we're just trying to respect their wishes. We do make phone calls to them as well to talk about, when are they talking about removing this, because we're in conditions that wouldn't suggest a fire ban, but we are in communication with them, trying to also tell them that we're not in an area that we believe we should be, but ultimately it's not our decision. So.
Any other questions?
Make a motion to receive with thanks.
I just have, just quickly, Chuck, how many recruits do we have at the moment? What's our present numbers?
Recruits.
Yes. In the 60-ish area, something like that?
Oh, you mean firefighters?
Firefighters,
Okay,
sorry.
Yeah, I think, we're just, I was gonna say we're probably closer to 65.
All right, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so my next question then, medical and resuscitation calls is your highest. I mean, you get called a lot then. Are all of our firefighters trained to a certain point on that, or is there certain ones that should go to all those calls kind of like that, or how does that work with the training?
Yeah, so initially when we take on a new recruit, sometimes they come to us with, they're already trained. Some of them are seeking full-time fire, so they already have some of their EMR training, especially if ones have done like a pre-fire service course. A lot of times they'll come to us with that training already. And some of them come to us with training that would exceed what our level of medical training. So for those individuals, we would put them in, some orientation, and then they'd be available to do that right away. We have other ones that, because the recruit course is running on the weekends for them, and then the initial first responder medical course that we do for them is a few days long as well. So we typically wait until the fall of that first year, and so they can get through focus on their firefighter training, and then they would come into the first medical response. So within the first year, they're all going. All of our other firefighters are continuously upgraded, updated, recertified. So they're all technically within the first year of hiring, they're ready to go on all levels. But that first maybe 9 months, depending on the scheduling, they wouldn't have the medical at the initial onset. We still do invite them to, participate and learn and observe. And we did start we did take a student on this year as a pre-fire service research for a student. So we took one of them on just to try it out. Some other departments have done that with success, so we're just exploring those other options and giving them opportunity to get real life experience, and it may help us with future recruitment as well.
Councilor Johnson.
Yes, to the sheriff, just one more question. I see the false alarms are, you know, a lot lower than what I'm used to seeing. So that's been a lot better,
Yeah, through the chair, it's our biggest false alarm response is Lakeville College School, because there's so many residents there and so many students living there. So we try to do what we can through you know, conversation education to try to lower that. We work with the office of the building department and through their manager to try to, you know, is there alarms that you can still meet the requirements, but maybe in a slightly different location to have less false alarms. So we can always do better there. You know, getting more prevention and inspections, but it kind of ebbs and flows with activities of the students.
that's good.
I will entertain a motion to receive the thanks. Mayor Watson, Deputy Mayor Knox, all in favor? Carried. Thank you very much, sir. All right, moving on, the building department, Don, you're on. Oh, boy.
Thank you very much. Just through the chair, I'd like to start first by acknowledging the hard work and dedication of all the township staff who's helped the building department through our transition. And also thank you to council for your continued patience and support. Your approval for the funding to allow us to seek third-party assistance in plans review. Just to kind of go quickly through the numbers, in May alone, we issued 40 building permits. In June, already we've issued 37. So those are great numbers for our building department. We still have over 40 permits in review, and we have over 1,100 open permits. So we still expect it to be a busy season, even as we continue to try to get caught up. Those numbers, I would say, aren't sustainable to the fact that we at some point need to transition away from our third-party help, and also as our inspections pick up, and some of the files that some other building department matters that maybe haven't been brought to the forefront as we focus on this, will sneak up. So we're going to continue to stay committed to our customer service and getting the permits issued, but I do want to just acknowledge the fact that 40 permits monthly would not be something that on an annual basis we can sustain. But it's been great to see those numbers for us. And I didn't know if there was any other questions that I can answer.
Council, questions, comments? Deputy Mayor.
Through the chair, thanks for your report, Don. And after speaking with you this morning, I had a call from a resident, and I reached out to Don this morning to find out about where that permitting was, and it was already issued. So sometimes that's stuff that happens, and I mean, that's going to make us look great as council. Unfortunately, sometimes they think then that it's us that's done it, but thanks, Don, for working hard on this and making us look good, and hopefully that can continue with the open communication is the largest thing I see with the people. And so thanks for, we're in a catch-up mode, and hopefully that can continue, and that open dialogue with our residents. Just lots of times people, if you tell them right up front, they're happier to know that. They might like it, but they're happier to know where you're at within that process. So thanks for that.
Any questions, comments? I will, Mr. Johnson, Mayor Watson, all in favor? Great, thank you very much, Don. Thank you. Okay, next is the planning department, and who's going to do that one? Amanda, you're on, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Watt. Christina's report is here. She's on vacation, so she's one that is very, very detailed. So it is here for you. If there's any specific questions, either myself, possibly Martina, or even Dawn can assist with responding. And if there's anything we can't answer today, we'll have her follow up on her return.
To the chair, I just got one question that, seemed we got her in place. Before we used to use the county an awful lot. The planners went, back and forth. Do we still use the county? Like,
Through the chair to Councillor Johnson, much less. So there's always collaboration with the county just on a number of files, because things like severances and that sort of thing do end up going to them. So we definitely have them as a resource for questions. I know Christina does reach out when she needs assistance and interpretations and that sort of thing, but as far as a contract or any costs associated, we don't send anything to the county.
because I was understanding before that, the comment came out, well, we pay the county, so let's use them as much as we could. So I'm just, thinking that, did we just take on this ourselves, that we would bypass them, or if we're still paying them for whatever we pay them? Should we not be using them more? That's my question.
So through the chair, there's a number of services that specifically the county assists with, but planning is not one of them. It's like our IT. So if we need to resource them for those types of services, they will bill us in addition to what our normal cost is to the county.
Okay.
Whether they do or not often they're helpful. I don't need to say that, and that they're billing us every time. Often they do assist us without sending us a bill, but it's not a service that is incorporated in the services provided by the county.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, I will entertain a motion to receive. Thanks. Deputy Mayor Nelson, Councilman Ward. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Treasurer, Finance, Paul, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one thing I want to highlight. So the report mentions the bids and tender system, and that I think I said we were going to go live with an RFP anytime now. I'm hoping to publish one today. So I think it'll be kind of a neater, cleaner process for both us and vendors. And so it's taking a little bit of time to get it up and running, but I think we're there, and we should be issuing one today.
Chair, can you explain to me what that really means? Like, we're going to send out a tender for whatever. So what do you mean by being live?
Through your chair. So in the budget last year, council approved that we're implementing a online portal for our tendering process. And so vendors will no longer submit bids through paper. They will submit it through this portal. But the portal handles kind of contract management. It allows all staff who are evaluating the proposals to do it all together. It's a lot more transparent. The audit process on everyone's scores is a lot more traceable and trackable for the public if we ever were to get an ROI. And so I think from an advertising perspective, having it in the system, a lot of vendors that we're trying to reach out to are already on these systems. There's a few main ones, and this is one of them. And so everything is it's moving it from a paper-based mail system to an electronic system that is managed through the portal.
But will you still be advertising this in the paper or somewhere else?
I think it'll depend on what we're actually putting out there. If it's something that will generate more local interest, then I think there could still be value there. If it's more of a broad, something that we're going to get people further away bidding on, then there may not be value in advertising local paper. One thing that council did approve is there's two formats from a payment and cost perspective for this system. You can do it so that the vendors pay for each bid, or you can do it such that the municipality pays an annual fee and all bids are free. So we opted for the latter, and so there will not be a cost for the vendors to make a bid. I think that was important to at least to start. We'll see what kind of feedback. I don't think we wanted to be in a position where we start to limit some of our local vendors or put a burden on them for bidding on a project. Being small, because of the way that the payments work, it works for kind of per user, and being small, we were able to keep it to one user. And so the cost was pretty reasonable to us to do it in this way.
And there still will be a time frame, like 2 weeks or something.
Yeah, the same process.
Okay.
Mayor Watson.
Through you, Chair, if I could just add to that, as a private sector business, we use platforms like Bids and Tenders, and Bidding Go is another one. And vendor suppliers will typically monitor these. They pay an annual fee to be able to access it, kind of unfettered, or they can do as a pay-per-use kind of piece. So if there is a project that is posted, a potential vendor can take a precursory look at that project to determine whether or not it is something within their scope, budget, capabilities, before they pay the fees to get the official bid documents and bid on it. So I'm excited about moving over to bids and tenders, because it will certainly open up opportunities for us to receive more interest in our bids that we put up. Fortunately, again, in some of the projects that we do, as you say, are quite local in nature, and it might be restrictive if they don't use those platforms, but it sounds like we've got a plan in place. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that roll out. And if I could just piggyback on that comment, another note in your report, Paul, was the Human Resources Information System. And I was so pleased to see that, it's been deployed for all of a couple of months at best, and it's already saved combined about 20 hours a month in labor, full stop. And that's monumental, right? And that's just going to be continues to be realized, every month as staff continue to use that system. So I feel like this is the work of the service delivery review. Finally, we're starting to reap those rewards. It was a long haul from the previous council and committee that was working that through, but congratulations to your department on that particular deployment, and as well with the bids and tenders. Looking forward to seeing more savings realized.
Benjamin Nelson.
Through the chair, Paul, most, in my experience back when we were putting out tenders, one of the biggest problems with some of the tenders that are online, they were pretty generic. And do we have the ability, do you just have the ability as staff to put in some specialty requests within the bid so that we get what we want out of that bid? It is, and that was an issue going back in the day when this first started to roll out, that a lot of staff did not want to buy into, not only this township, but other places, was because they were so generic that you couldn't specifically. So has that changed, I guess? Is that something that is a lot easier and a lot more user-friendly from the people that are asking for these bids and tenders?
Through your chair, I can't necessarily speak to the history and what you're referring to in terms of being restrictive. I mean, we have the possibility and potential to create kind of whatever we want in these tenders, and whatever specs we need or scope of project. We can tailor certain bids to put an emphasis on price or on experience. We have different options. And so I think when we are developing the documents, we want to make sure we capture, I think one of the changes here is not just that we're implementing a bids and tenders and online portal, but we are centralizing the procurement process. And that is something that Mayor Watson just referred to as that was identified in our service delivery. I think the managers, they've all been kind of responsible for doing their own, and I think centralizing it and getting a little bit more of an expertise in procurement in one central spot, who can help develop really good RFP documents to ensure we're getting what we want. I think that'll support, and that'll help the managers out as well and the organizations. So I think we will get better documents going forward, and we can kind of get whatever we need in there to make sure we get what we want.
Just as a follow-up, does this still allow us to piggyback with the county bids as well for different work that we actually do? Or actually probably the county is putting the tender out. Are they using the same system as well?
Through the chair, yes, they are using the same system. And it would probably work the same way that it has been. Prior to us implementing the system, we actually did use the county's portal to issue some of our larger tenders in recent history. But if it is something that we're doing joint, it would likely be something that we issue through the county's portal, depending on what it is. But we've done that in the past, and we would continue to do so.
Just Paul, I think it's great, Paul. I just seen that. I think it's probably developed a lot more since I left the field for sure. And actually back in the day, it was a lot of good roads had some generic portholes to go through with their tendering process. And that was more based on a lot of MTO projects that they were more concerned with at that time. It was more higher level than they kind of left us aside, if I can say that, like the smaller municipalities, it was kind of way beyond the scope of what we could actually get in on. But anyways, thanks for all your hard work in that, and I'm a firm believer that is the way to go for sure. So thanks for that.
The other, Mr. Weisby, question? And I think I answered, Paul, because I believe you said that you have the ability to tweak, certain requirements or needs or that kind of thing, whatever. But and what I'm wrong on this, but when this addition was built a few years back, it was like $1.1 million to build or whatever, and it was a government grant, I think, that built a good portion or whatever. And I know a few of the local contractors, you had to put up a 10% retainer kind of like that to even bid on, like it's about $110,000 that people had to put up as a retainer just to put in the bid on, which deterred a lot of local people, stuff like that. So is that something that's even still in place, I wonder, with government money, or how do we, like that did zero out a lot of local contractors, that's for sure.
To chair, I think it's always case by case basis depending on the project. But you definitely also, as a purchaser, you want to make sure they have the capability to complete the work, pay their employees, and that they're going to be solvent throughout the course of the project. So there's also some protections that you put in against yourself. Now there are options that you potentially take the money only from the successful vendor, but sometimes it puts you in a position that you award it and now you're trying to collect some money, so it's easier to do it all up front and then return the funds. It's just one of those procurement processes, and sometimes best practices to protect the organization as well. And if that is prohibitive, that may not be the vendor that's best for a large kind of multi-million-dollar project.
Okay, sounds good. All right, I will entertain a motion to receive with thanks. Mayor Nelson, Councilor Johnson, all in favor? Very much, Paul. Moving right along, clerk's office, Martina.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My report's in front of you. I just want to highlight, so far, including today's meeting, we've done 28 meetings in that's agendas, minutes, and everything. So it's been a busy year, and we're happy to continue supporting council and our various committees with the work they're doing through that. And I also just want to highlight our complaints policy. It's been working really well since we've implemented our new policy and procedure. We've had 11 so far, and 10 of those 11 have been resolved, and the one complaint is active right now. So we're working with the complainant to get the resolution that they are satisfied. So, also on the marriage licenses, We have received a notice from the province that we are approved, and now we are waiting for our registry books and paperwork to come in, so we can begin offering that service to the public. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions, comments from staff, or from council, sorry, Councilor Johnson.
To the chair, I want to say that, but in the report that you're very busy, so we're picking up other hours somewhere else, you may use someone to give you a hand. Now I see that you're, on some of these other places, you went to some meetings and then all of a sudden you're appointed to the different committees. So you gotta watch out, you don't get too much on your plate. No, a very good report, I mean, and you are very, very busy and I must say you're doing a very good job.
Thank you.
Any questions, comments?
Just thank for the report.
All right.
And I'll make a motion to accept.
Some received. Thanks, thank you. Deputy Mayor Nelson, Councilor Johnson, all in favor? Thank you very much, Regina. Moving right on, CAO Lana. Floor is yours.
Thank you, through the chair. Again, the report is there. I think as Paul mentioned, we've been working through a couple of RFPs. So the one that will go out this week is for the strategic plan. And then the other one is for the demolition of the house on the 5th. We have to do some work there, some testing just before we move forward to identify what's there before we put it to tender. So that one will be another couple of weeks probably before we get that one done. I've completed all the management performance evaluations, and they're working through the balance of the staff. So we're trying to get ahead of the game. We're still a little bit late this year, but we changed the process, and I think it went fairly well for management. So as long as staff goes smoothly, we'll continue with that. There's been some various legal matters, some HR, the IT recruitment, which hopefully that is coming to conclusion today. We're working on our short-term rental committee information that we're going to take back to them. We're just looking at setting up a meeting for August, and we're working through some of the requests from that committee to bring back to them so they can essentially bring a recommendation back to council for discussion. And just further to our council meeting of last week in the ORBs, I did speak with the county. They have asked that we provide the map that was requested from council, and they are going to do some initial consultation with Selwyn, just to think that's touched the border, and come back and confirm that they're okay, and we'll update council at the next council meeting based on that conversation from the county. I'm happy to answer any questions.
And through the chair, no, I'm not sure if this is your department, but it came up at the council meeting there. How about Crow's Landing? Are we going to kind of get a hold of some of the main people that use the dogs and talk to them about the concerns the public have?
Through the chair to Councillor Johnson, we have managed to pull a couple of bylaws to look at other areas that do govern them. Our challenge may be with the establishing of fines. So we are preparing between Martina and I, we have gone through some other documentation, and we will prepare something for council. Essentially, we probably could do a special meeting instead of waiting until the 1st of August. So once we have a chance to just kind of go through those bylaws and get a game plan, we'll set something up for that.
Yeah, because I think talking to them and letting explain them, hopefully will be better than trying to find them. You know, I think they got to understand they're using the bargain. We know they're busy this time of year. You know, that's the way it works, but still, I think if they were talked to and said, you know, like, we camp it up, the public wants to use it too. Then I think that probably would do it well to find them.
Through the chair, there has been some communication.
Yeah.
I know we took a drive up last week. There was availability there, but the barge is certainly there, and they're certainly doing work there. So, you know, some of it's timing, depending on when you arrive, whether or not there's space, but there has been some communication there. I believe the parties are aware. It's just whether or not they have an alternative right now.
Deputy Mayor Nelson.
Yeah, through the chair, and I was up on the weekend due to some other phone calls. And so I just thought, well, I'd want to take a look. And anyways, unfortunately, one contractor, I think we need to really let them know. Their barge was tied up there, and I don't know how long it was there, but it was actually definitely there on Saturday morning. And it was banging against our cement and actually making marks in. I wouldn't even want that for my boat. Like, I wouldn't want that for my boat, and I certainly don't want it against our cement causing damage. So maybe if we could get a hold of them, I didn't want to take that on my own, but I think if a letter was sent or a phone call maybe from staff, I waited until this morning to talk to you about it. But I think it'd be just just causing damage to our wharf is not, that's not acceptable. And it wasn't acceptable to the people I talked to there as well. There was other people there that was talking to me and anyways, I think something needs to be done with that.
Through the chair, as mentioned, there's been some verbal conversations, but we certainly can send a formal letter based on, improvements received.
Sure.
And to the chair, one more thing is as that company, Greenview, on the buildings that we're potentially going to be doing. Like all of a sudden, something started coming and going. I mean, it's the fire building is one I want to see go instantly. So I would still like to try to push the heck out of them to get going on something. I mean, this is the fire department that I see that they could come along someday and tell us to shut that other building down. So I mean, on their behalf, I'd really like to see something get going on that. If we can really push them somehow.
Through the chair to Councillor Johnson, we have had conversations, so I don't want to say we got stalled, but we're looking at the stormwater management. So I've provided Greenview with all the information that we received when we took that additional 8.17 acres out of the licensed pit area. They have provided us with what needs to be done to those areas, but there's also been some changes to the property based on the stormwater management plan that was put in place initially. So we have provided them with the updated information. So Greenview's reviewing that, and I expect that I will hear from them relatively in short order, and we'll have to make a determination on how we move forward with the stormwater management so that we can proceed with the development.
Okay.
You're awesome.
Through you, just to piggyback on that, what is, what's a relationship with Greenview in the sense of, how are they on this project, right? Like, I mean, I were on this project in 2018 when I was first selected and continue to be on the project. And in my mind, over whatever period of time, there's probably a lot of money to be earned by a consultant to come in on a project of this nature. So is there a point in time where we would look at, re-tendering this, if it was ever tendered to begin with, or, opening it up now that the project is going to be taking another turn, or maybe we're totally happy with what's going on with Greenview and the time it takes to get back to us and such, and we're just okay with that.
Through the chair to Mayor Watson, in this particular situation, I think Greenview has the background. I believe there was a tender and they were awarded. It was prior to my time, but they certainly have the background information. They certainly have the drawings that if we modify slightly, it should be less expensive to allow them to continue to do that. Once we have the site prepared with the stormwater management plan and we have all of that in order based on what they've already done, we can decide at that time when we tender the actual building whether or not we want to retain them to do the management of the project, or whether or not we want to tender that in a different way so that they are not as involved depending on their capability and their capacity, because Tyler was very open about how busy they were. At the same time, I will go back and communicate the urgency again and let them know that that we would really like to move forward.
Yeah, and just to recant that, he did say that they were incredibly busy, and I respect that. But it also seemed like, they were looking to not have to be required to do this bit of responsibility, right? So if we're falling to the bottom of their pile, that's okay. Finish the project and let's move, let them finish their leg of the project, I should say, so that we can move on with our project and continue whatever that looks like, right? So yes, please carry that to them.
Thank you.
All right, my comment is congratulations on your presidential term of AMCTO, and I'm sure you did very, very well, making them aware of where Township of Douro-Dummer is, and as was always said before, all roads lead to Douro-Dummer. So thank you very much, and congratulations on what you did.
Thank you.
Yeah, look forward to anything that comes across that's helpful.
It was certainly nice to have both of us there and representing Douro-Dummer in a number of capacities. And Martina got the opportunity to give a presentation on our legislative and policy committee because the chair had to step away. So it was nice to have both of us up there from Douro-Dummer, such a small municipality in the grand scheme of things and the number of delegates. So I think we represented well.
Congratulations.
And on that note, I will take the motion, Mayor Watson and Councilor Johnson, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay, we're doing very well here. We're moving right on. Now, committee of the whole community grant program, treasurer, Paul.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Just some background on this report. So there were some requests, and I think, there's been requests, not just in the 2023 budget, but in previous years as well. And kind of at the end of the 2023 budget, council requested that staff develop a community grant policy. So I've been doing some research and just kind of wrapping my head around, putting some thoughts into what our policy and program might look like. In the research, I've discovered there's a pretty wide variety of programs that municipalities have out there. They vary by budget, scope, format. And so my thought process was, before I go too far down in developing something, this request did come from council, so I want to make sure what I'm putting together reflects what council's objectives were, and what council was hoping to achieve through this program. In the report, I have 3 areas for discussion, and maybe it might be best if we kind of tackle each one on its own, and then there can be an opportunity for overall or general comments at the end. And so those 3 areas are budget, and then eligibility, who's eligible, and then the format of the program or what the process would be. So the first questions I had under budget, let me just bring those up. I'll just kind of list them all, and then I can hand it back over to council for discussion or questions back to me on this. And so for budget, there has been, in the current budget, there's $3,900 budgeted for kind of community grants. They fall under a few different accounts. Since 2015, I did an average of what's been given out. There's been an average of $2,000 per year. The average request is a little varied. I did a quick little look at that this morning. It averages about $300, but that's because there's a few that are $1,000. There's a lot of kind of $50 entries, so roughly about $300. Now, I did mention in the report, not having a formal program sometimes doesn't allow people to make formal requests. So the second that we put in a formal program, we might see a large uptick in the number of requests that the township gets. That we're putting it out there, that we are open, feel free to ask for money. So those number of requests and the amount that people are going to request, I think can change and will increase based on what we put into place here. So the questions that I've outlined in the report, but feel free to get more information than what I've asked. So would council like to see more than the current $3,900 budgeted for community grants? Does council intend to put a maximum on the amount each group receives? And then does the process for approval vary depending on the amount of the request? So can staff approve if it's below $500? Or does it have to always come through council? Or if it's over $1,000, does it have to come to council? Those are the types of questions that I'm kind of wrestling with, and any input would be great.
All right, thank you. Comments from council?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just go through the questions in order and provide my comments anyway. In terms of the $3,900 budgeted annually, I think that's pretty reasonable given kind of the size of requests that you're seeing, whether it be $50 or $250. In terms of the maximum each group receives, I'll push that back over and just ask what is the maximum that's been given in the last couple of years.
Sure. Through you, Chair. There's been $1,000 given. That seems to be the maximum. I can do a little bit more digging and analysis, which was kind of my plan for the final report, but the, that's definitely around the maximum that's been given.
I guess I'll throw that back. I guess I'll throw that as my comment there, $1,000 being maximum, because that's roughly 25% of the budget. And then the process eligibility component, I think makes sense for anything over $500 from council.
Councilor Johnson.
Well, the first question, we'd like to see the current $3,900. I think we got to start somewhere, and seeing that's where it seems to be up more now than it used to be. I know it used to be around that 2,000, like you said, but I think if we're comfortable, we can put up that kind of money. I would suggest that we would stick with that around figure, maybe say $4,000. And the thing is, it's all about the timing. If they want the report, we'd have to have a cutoff period, as far as I'm concerned, like from January to July, and then after that, we'll put you on for next year. But so the more people know about this, what we do, even though some groups we do it all the time, the more they know, then as you say, the request will be greater. But there should be a time frame. That you can't come along in November and say, they got more money, just use it up. I think there should be a time frame that they apply, just for, we budgeted anyway, that's fine, but we still should have a time. And on the maximum, I guess the big thing is that we give some to the few places we give them automatically, like the plowing matches, and the county, we give the county one or two different items. And I'm not sure that we give the cottage associations anything. There's some that we have done every year. So I mean, we gotta kind of know that that's gonna be whatever, $2,000. Now we've only got another $2,000. So I mean, as far as saying a maximum, I think we gotta kind of separate them and know that they're gonna come back every year. They've been doing it and we do it. So, I think if we can stick within that $4,000, and as far as what each group gets, I guess, kind of depends on how many groups apply. Just to say $500 to a group, and all of a sudden we get 3 or 4 in a row, and all of a sudden our money's all used up. I don't know where I would go with that one. We'd have to kind of look at the past record, knowing that there will be more come forward. And I guess the last one just follows right into place in that. Like the thing is, I do know that there's some cases, I mean, we do want to give the money out as the public money. And I do know there's some cases that, for recreational sake, that some people have went over and above material things and even worldwide on different events, that should we support them? Again, it's putting our township on the map. It matters to anybody. The thing is, those are people I would like to support in a small way. If there are people and they've gone and above, then I do think we should support them. Again, how much, I don't know. The request, I'm sure lots of times is anywhere from $300, $500 to $1,000, I don't know. But I think we've got to know that what's there. And as far as your comment, as far as would you have the ability to do someone for $200? I don't have a problem with that. But I would want to know that, even if they make the decision, I'd want to know it because, you'd be standing in a group and someone said, oh yeah, well, we get $200. Or did you? I don't think I want to find that people would say something, or I don't know what the heck you're coming from. I mean, I appreciate you getting it, but I didn't know anything about it. That's my only comment.
Mayor Watson, and everyone else.
Through the chair, so I agree, like a $4,000 budget makes sense. Keep it round and simple. I think a maximum in place is probably worthwhile, and I think $1,000 is maybe a little too high because it is 25% of the budget, right? So $750 as a maximum is my thought. I don't know what the rest of the council thinks of that. But the other thing that I'd like to see of that $4,000, just using round numbers, if we set aside 500 and use that for kind of impromptu requests that are less than $100, that staff can administer easily. So it's like those $50 ones, or you've got, you know, a local who's traveling to represent Team Ontario somewhere, and they're looking for a little sponsorship or something like that. We have that flexibility because that's stuff you can't necessarily plan for on a regular intake period, like, which I agree with what Councillor Johnston was saying. And it gives staff the flexibility to administer those. But again, to Councillor Johnston's point, I want to know about that as a member of council. So if that comes to us in a committee of the whole report, or the next council meeting, or in an annual report, you know, in the grand scheme of things, $4,000 is a lot of taxpayer money, but it's not a lot of money in our overall budget, and staff have enough on their plate to have to be, you know, creating reports and monitoring and, you know, ways to validate eligibility. So we need to have a certain amount of flexibility. So I think that there would be two different processes depending on the request. If it's under $100, then that's just an internal staff decision to report back to council. But if it's anything over that, I'm thinking it's an intake process, an annual intake process that maxes out at $750, and that is done on an annual basis.
Yeah, through the chair, I kind of agree with most of everything that's been talked about here. I think by the sounds of it, what our budget is now is like $4,000 is probably great. I do know from being on the Optimist Club, there's always a one-off that comes in, and you write a policy and it excludes something that's a very, very good cause. For example, we had a person going to the Olympics and was an Olympic athlete, but our policies kind of limited that. And I think if we have the flexibility that bring that back to council and say, yeah, it's deserving, this is world stage stuff here that we could actually help the person, promote them and give them, and I don't see anybody that would find us in fault of doing that. But at least council could make that decision on them one-offs or something that, and every time you write a policy, something is, but we need that flexibility. So if it come back saying, I'm okay with a top tier of $1,000, but if it come back that, I don't know, for whatever the good cause might be, come and the request was $1,200, and that's something maybe could come back to council and ask for it. Not necessarily that they might get it, but at least it would be available to us. And if them requests, I agree, it's taxpayers' money. If them requests come in and council approves it, well, so be it. That's my comment.
Just a couple of comments. Budget-wise, so on and so forth, I don't have a problem with that. I think, as Councillor Johnson said, you don't want somebody to come, oh, we got $200, thanks very much, and you don't even know about it. So, I mean, when that's done in the next council meeting, just in our information items that we do, we just accept them all at once. This thing was a donation was made to so and so particular. It's just a quick blurb in that thing. It's not a big deal, but it tells us that it's there. We're not blindsided, like you said. That would be, and then at the end of the year, once a year, we could do a full report of where all the money went and like that. And I know, like Ray said, the lake stewards, we give them money to do the testing of the water every year. They come to us, and
Does that come out of that?
the plowing match, I believe that's probably out of this, the same thing. I'm guessing, I don't know.
I'll have to double check that's.
Okay, so I know we do research. My other question, and I don't know whether it falls under this or whether it's something separate, but what we just did for the Lions Club recently, does that fall under this also? So that would probably be more than $1,000. I don't know what the taxes are on that. Like, we can't waive the taxes, but we could set up a special fund to do it, and we're doing it because they're a service club. It's not everybody's gonna come in and say, hey, you waive their taxes, we want you to do something for ours. No, that's not the way it works. They're a service club, and we're trying to help out, and all their money comes back into our community. So if that's the case, then $1,000 isn't going to cover what the Lions taxes are, so we have to, I don't know whether that's even in this, like with $1,000 on some of those things and $1,100, that's probably not in this, so we may have to look at bumping that up to more to cover that, because we told them to come back, if they have to apply every year, but if they apply, we don't have the money in there to do that with this kind of budget, so it's something that we need to factor into, and I'm sure we're not in stone today on this, maybe a report will go back to council on with a tally of everything that we've had over the last year, last 2 years, whatever, and say, okay, well, maybe it's $6,000 or maybe it's $7,000, but you know, it's something to cover, because I do believe the Lions is gonna come back every year asking for the same thing. And I don't blame them. I mean, like I said, it's a service club and they do everything in our community, so that's just my thoughts on it, so I don't need an answer to that, but I just wanted to throw that in there and say that that's another caveat that could bump that $3,900.
To the chair, just one more comment, was that we just brought up, for instance, the service clubs we do have, like the office, they were, the people come in and ask for some money, and we had money, we would do it. And the same as the Lions. But the problem is that we're running out of service clubs. The office is no more. So people that went, that we did help provide, that's gone. So our Lions, we still get requests and we still give out money that they're not very wealthy, but we still give out money to the community that where we can help. So I think that all of a sudden we're going to be leaned on a little bit more because of some of their service clubs don't exist now, which is very unfortunate. So I'm just making that comment that I mean, I know it's a public money and that's very important because all people see is their taxes and that, so I mean, that's a big item. But I'm just saying that more and more, it's people that know where to lean. And if it's for our local people doing something that's good for the whole community, I think we've got to support them in a small way. Okay.
All right, any other comments, questions? Any final comments at all?
We got 2 more sections.
Yep, no, I was just talking about, you're good on what we've kind of said, maybe go back and report on a total somewhere, you know, in another meeting, so in a council meeting, and give us an idea of where the total is.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just Paul, as you're going through the next 2 sections, we consolidate everything into one and then we can have one. Sure. We probably put everything into one here already.
Sure.
Yeah.
Through your chair. So the remaining 2 sections, oh, sorry, just follow up on the things. Yeah, this is just to give me some guidance.
Yeah.
The more formal report, policy, and program will be outlined before budget comes. So everything will be in place. The challenge may be, and just actually talking this through in my head is if we're going to put in something for this year and we have to get it out and communicate it, and there's time frame. So the time frame may be different for year 1 of the program than it may be in future years. Just by the time we kind of finalize what this is going to look like, but we will get something back before you. I just didn't want to bring something that just did not meet any objectives or reflect what council was thinking at all. And so I thought this would be a good venue to get some input. So the 2 remaining sections, we can do them together. So it's just around eligibility, around who's eligible. So it's in the report outlined, it's quite detailed, because what you can find is, people trying to, for lack of a better word, cheat the system. And you want to make sure that the funds are going where they're meant to go. And so there is a kind of a strict list there about who's eligible and who's not. So we can, if there's any comments on that specifically, or if I can, I can just bring that forward in the report and we can discuss it. Feel free to send me comments later too, that's fine as well. So I listed some criteria, so if there's any comments on if it's too restrictive, or if there's maybe a restriction that you were thinking that isn't captured, feel free to comment on that. And then the other piece is the process, which has started to be touched on a little bit already. And so where some municipalities have more of like it's been discussed, a formal process, you apply in between these timelines, And then we review what's been submitted, and then we dish out, we kind of approve who gets money and who doesn't. And then there's less formal process where it's just documenting. You have to fill out this form. If it's less than this amount, then staff can approve. If it's more than this amount, you have to come and maybe make a delegation presentation to council. But that can happen at any point in the year. Maybe until budget's spent, or, maybe staff can make that approval until budget is spent, and then you can come back to council at any time. So those are kind of the two options, and some sort of hybrid in between the two. Now, there's already been some comments around that. It sounds like more of a formal process with a little bit dedicated to those one-offs. And that's the challenge with having a dedicated process. It's like Councillor or Deputy Mayor Nelson said, that there are always going to be these one-offs throughout the year. So if you restrict it to a certain time frame, you may not capture everything that you're trying to get done. So with that said, I'll hand it over for kind of any comments on what I've said or any wrap-up comments, and then I can go away and put something together.
You're watching. Sorry, one more here.
Excuse me, sorry, I didn't think I was going to go first. Okay, so all of the draft criteria, eligibility criteria, I agree with. I've sat on many loan review or not loan grant review committees in the past for various nonprofit. And this seems very standard. And as somebody who's applied for funding and grants from other municipalities and other organizations, this is very much expected from any organization who's been around for a little bit. The only thing that I would look at adding though is some sort of reporting mechanism, so proof of the expense, so that they're not coming in asking for an arbitrary amount or double dipping, coming to us, we talked about I don't want any names, that wouldn't be fair, but organizations that maybe do have a base in all municipalities or doing work in all municipalities in the area, and they're going to 3 different municipalities and overfunding for what they're actually telling us that they're needing the funding for. So I would look for some sort of proof of the expense, as well as how the township will be recognized. I don't expect that we're going to have big, P3 funding signs at every project and in every book, but it would be nice that if there's, some way that if people are able to recognize the municipality and recognize the taxpayers, for their contribution, that should be included as well. And lastly, not an existing ABC of the township. And I saw this already, like it mustn't be a municipal organization, but I'd maybe go one branch further and say, and I will pick on a particular organization, not variously, but like the Friends of the Library. So the library can't apply, even though they're a separate board. If we say that, municipal funded boards can't, but their friends or their offshoot groups, the friends of, might not make sense because they're really just fundraising to come back into municipal resources anyways. So I don't know if we can put some parameters around the boards and committees of the township. The Canada Day Parade, / events committee already funded through the municipality, kind of by de facto, by having staff and council resources. So I just had to tighten that up a little bit. But otherwise, having a process, I think if it's an internal committee that's reviewing it, a committee of staff, maybe a member of council wants to be part of that or not. And then a recommendation from staff to council to make the approvals as listed before it's finally approved would be kind of the process. So not having individuals come in and make delegations like they're on Dragon's Den or anything for $500. It's not worth it for them. It's not fair then, right? So review it, make sure they're meeting the criteria. There's going to be some years where there may be choices that have to be made, where there's more applications than there is funding, and then those are decisions that council should be making and not putting staff in those positions.
To the chair, got a question. In the past, when our teams, example, ball, hockey, they win in Ontario or something, they used to come in, we'd give them a plaque, and we'd always give them a township pin. Would that all come out of this thing automatic? Or is that just something that is another part that you take it out of?
Through chair, I think that wouldn't necessarily be the intent of this. I don't see that. I see the community grant as money being handed over.
Yeah.
Whereas that sounds more like an expense, like a community, a special
So,
event expense or,
So that's what
promotion.
it is.
Right.
No, that's good, that's good.
Through the chair, and this holds another question is, for example, we give to under the county, provincial, and federal organizations, we're giving to the county plowing match. Is that going to eliminate from giving that by making that statement or no? Another further one that I think of as well is we're trying to recruit doctors, and I can foresee some people coming forward to all municipalities looking for some funding to get more doctors here. Is that going to fall under this as well? Not likely, but I don't know.
So through
Sorry,
chair,
put you on the spot.
no, that's okay, through chair, I would have to maybe think about the plowing match a little more. However, I did take this criteria from a previous municipality that I worked for, and I know that they hosted the plowing match one year, and they did fund it as well. And so I'm assuming that the criteria as written allowed for the plowing match. So I think that one's fine. Then in terms of giving money to the county, it may not have to fall under this program. Like there could be other opportunities, other venues, other accounts that we can provide money to other organizations, including the county, but it wouldn't be through this process of them coming to ask. That could be a separate request. We're still going to get requests for money. That fall outside of this criteria, and council will still need to consider.
Would it be something we could just put in the policy, or any other requests would come back to council as per staff's recommendation, something like that? I think that would cover us all up. It's great to have all that in place so to stop these people from coming with frivolous requests, but I mean, there's always going to be something outside the box, I think. So anyways, just my thought.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Just in terms of where we're at, I guess with Mayor Watson's comment there on the list of criteria, that seems to be a pretty reasonable cookie cutter type thing that all government at various levels uses for their funding criteria. Have we had complaints in the staff from organizations that, I'm taking it everything's been pretty ad hoc throughout the year up to this point. Have we had any complaints from organizations that didn't get money, or organizations, pardon me, that claimed that they didn't know there was money available? I guess where I'm really going with this is, are we making something an issue that isn't, and spending $10,000 worth of staff time on $4,000? That ridiculous? Question general comment, a little bit of both.
So through you, Chair, I'm not aware of any complaints, any issues. And I think that's a fair point in terms of, we want to leave it open-ended enough. We don't maybe have the volume, like I've kind of said at the beginning, to warrant too formal of a process, but is there demand for it? Is there sometimes, if it's not an option, are people not asking because they don't know it's an option? And so if the intent is to actually get some more money to certain groups, then that's where this process and program can be abused. If it's just more to handle the requests that do come in and make sure that they follow a certain process, and maybe we can screen ones because it doesn't meet the policy and therefore it never gets to council, it doesn't waste your time, doesn't waste our time. That's maybe an option where we could start as well, in terms of at least we have a criteria for who's eligible, this is the process, this is the form you need to fill out. And then we can, if it's over a certain amount, we can bring it to you, if it's under, we can handle it ourselves. And so it may not need to be this formal application period, but you get into, like anything, if budget runs out, you know, you should have come earlier in the year, right?
I just have one, if I may, and I'm not doing this. I am part of this organization and treasurer actually, but, and it's just things that have its principal address in the township. So, and I'm just gonna speak to Pathway of Fame, which incorporates all of Peterborough County, like Harry Sherry appears in the Pathway of Fame. Prominent member of this township, you've got worldwide recognition to Douro-Dummer. But, and he's in the Pathway of Fame, which is a nonprofit organization, and we rely on donations and people buying advertising in our magazine, that type of stuff like that to pay for it. And when we do to put the plaques in there and recognize people from us that have brought back to the community, but the resident, it's not in the township, like the address isn't in the township, so. There could be more, I just think that one, I'm not like I'm gonna come to the township for money, I just want to throw that one out there, that there may be times that an organization has really benefited our township for recognition, but the principal address isn't in our township, so I'm not quite sure that that one could be wangled a little bit as to.
Can I add to that?
Certainly you can.
Thank you, Chair. I think in that circumstance specifically, and there probably are others, I think the Chamber of Commerce is doing things in our community and different organizations. Those can come forward as sponsorship advertising requests, right? So, you know, using the Pathway of Fame as an example, since you raised it, you know, if there's a member of our community who's being honored, celebrated through the Pathway, I would expect that a member of the board or whoever would come forward and say, hey, this person's a resident of the community, they're being celebrated, and we're doing a, you know, a sponsored, you know, buy their star on the Pathway or whatever it is, right? Like to help contribute to and recognize their recognition. And I think that it's more of an advertising sponsorship, which isn't really a donation policy or a grant policy, right? It's not something to help them with their operating, it's something to, you know, just support the organization through raised sponsorship. And that's where I was kind of talking a little bit about recognition as well, right?
And we do take donations. I mean, I've had two already this year, people just donated.
Sure.
So that's kind of why I threw it in there, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's a very, very simple rewording and like that. Like I said, I'm not expecting them to jump out if the principal resident isn't in the township, or benefiting from it. If there is that kind of request come in, they can, you know, like why exclude them? And like that, if you just reword that word a little bit, or take it right ignorant, but they don't have to have the address here in the township.
I mean, the Chamber of Commerce requests that we get, because I know we've got them in the past to support the Business Excellence Awards or whatever, are they in those lines as well that you've extrapolated in your report? No? I'm usually put them in your advertising.
So, through the chair, it normally goes to advertising.
It normally goes to advertising, so no, right? Like it's not in those preliminary numbers, so that $3,900 or $4,000, as we're talking about today, wouldn't be reflective of those funds, nor would they be through other sponsorships.
I usually put them in economic development advertising. If they're business related to support our business.
All right, perfect. Any other
Oh,
comments?
that's just,
Yes, Councilor.
when you're talking about that, Martina, the advertisement we do in the Lakeville Herald. So is that almost coming out of that, like, not necessarily advertisement, but when we have the thing in there for Remembrance Day, where we have it there for all different items, does that come out of where you just said?
So through you, the chair. So if it's something like a fire safety week, it'll come out of the fire department's budget. If it's Remembrance Day, I take it out of the Remembrance Day committee budget. Like I try to think what's the added for and where can it be budgeted from so that it's tied to that department or that activity.
Good. Excellent. You good with what you've heard here so far, Paul? You kind of, it's a lot to absorb, I'm sure, and you kind of got a bit of a handle where council would like to see and what they'd like to see as far as
The amounts.
a little blurb saying that we gave money to somebody, so like Rachel's been not blindsided. Maybe a thing back saying what ones we've got so far, which ones we've donated to, where we're sitting, that type of thing, and then the comments we've just heard in the last 2 years. So we don't expect to work miracles, just but you've got a pretty good handle on where council's sitting.
Yeah, I'll bring, to Chair, I'll bring something back and, you know, there may be tweaks still.
Exactly.
But at least it gives me a framework to start.
Yeah. All right, perfect. Thank you very much. All right, I'll take a motion to receive that and ask Paul to come back and report to council. Mayor Watson, Deputy Mayor Nelson, all in favor? Thanks very much, Paul. Okay, we're getting there, folks. Okay, 6:11. Clerk's office, council training and learning opportunities. All yours, Becky. When you're done.
Sorry,
yeah,
Chair.
yeah. Finish what you're doing there first. You'll forget.
It's possible. So through you, this is just a short report, reaching out to council as a whole to see what type of training opportunities you would like to see for the remainder of this year and maybe into 2024. The Service Delivery Review has suggested that we provide council with additional training opportunities, and so we have been diligent since the beginning of your term to put those opportunities in place. We had a pretty fulsome inaugural training and that program. We've also done trainings on Clean Water Act. Fire department has provided training on emergency services, things like that. So we want to keep doing that, but I also wanted to just point out some options from AMO that are available online, so it might work with your schedules. And then here, if there's topics that you would like us to focus on that maybe we haven't spoken to or that you'd like us to arrange from.
Thank you. Comments, questions, from the council?
Through the chair, I did take a look at the links that AMO was offering, and I'm not going to AMO this year. You're going, Deputy Nelson, yeah. I saw something that they're doing like as a hybrid and in person and virtual. That was like a one-on-one on planning or something to that effect. I feel like we've talked about this a lot. You know, the planners have, you know, heads are on a swivel because of all the changes that are coming from the province. You know, we're getting, you know, these, you know, MAFs and the different things that are coming through that we're responding to. I think personally, I would benefit from some sort of, you know, planning 101, whether it's the AMO. I'm not going to AMO, so I won't be able to do the in-person session, but perhaps online. I haven't checked my calendar against it, or how council feels about maybe having a group session that's outside of AMO beyond that. Sure.
Through you, the chair. I did specifically include the AMO planning 101 because I have taken that with members of committee of adjustment, and I felt that the training staff has provided on basic planning exceeds what you would learn in the AMO course. So if you'd like us to set up other training opportunities about planning, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe that's where my confusion comes from then through the chair. So, maybe what staff has given us is the 201 and I never got the 101. I don't know. You know, just to, yeah. Or I'll just sit down with the planner for some one-on-one. Get more understanding. But I just know that there have been a lot of changes. Obviously, we all are aware of that. And I don't know who's got the most current information as to the state of the union other than the ministries, right? Ultimately, but I think that would be helpful. I also just, while I have the floor, I saw the human rights and equality one, which personally I think is something that we should all be looking at as an organization. But I'm also aware that there might be some efforts to do something jointly with the county. Perhaps, I don't know, looking at our CAO, in case you've got some insight on that from Sheridan or no, or.
Through the chair to Mayor Watson, not specifically, I know there is a committee, so our might have some additional information, but you know, working as a group to identify policy. I know we've talked about that, so there potentially could be an option to do it with the county. Alternatively, I did actually speak with another municipality not that long ago, and they had some training done from the same organization that is through AMO, and they spoke very highly of it, and yeah, said it was very worthwhile. So something that we can certainly look at.
Through the chair. So Martina, are you looking for some input from us? Which ones we would like to take out of this, or it's probably just one where what you wanted to, or can anybody pick and choose whatever they'd like to take out of the three, or?
Through the chair. Yeah, if there's one of these that interests you, I'm happy to sign anyone up for them. That's great. Or if you have topics that you'd like us to bring in a speaker or do a group training with a township organization, etc. I just need to know so that I can arrange it.
Okay, I wouldn't mind taking the navigating the conflict relationship. I wouldn't mind taking them all, but I'd be on the hunt on November 7th. Or if I can take the other one as well.
Add one for your stand.
Pardon me?
Just add one for your stand.
But sure, whatever works, or whatever you plan on, I'm willing to take it, or whatever you plan, if it's with other organizations.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
So the bottom line is, when these dates come up through the chair here, that you're saying that they're online, then we could just do it online anyways, right? Is that right?
Exactly, yeah, through the chair. These are everyone should be signed up for AMO's weekly newsletter, and so these are just pulled from the newsletter. So if there's ones that you want to take, let us know so we can sign you up. There is a charge, so we have to make sure it gets paid for. But yeah, just let us know, or you can always email me after. I just wanted to put this on council's radar. So it's something, if something catches your eye or there's a topic, then I know about it and I can plan it.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion to receive with thanks the report that essentially members of council get back to Martina with their training desires.
Okay. And before I ask for second, Martina, it's something that always intrigued me from way back when the county put on the conference, wherever it was, a training session that all the Indians go with for committee of adjustment for minor variance and stuff like that. That's always intrigued me, and I know we've got bits and pieces and parts here, like, people say boathouse up is going to block my view. Well, you don't have a right to a view. That's not part of the 4 tests, that kind of like that. A refresher on that would be really beneficial, I think, to all council today. Are you the chair of at the moment? But that could change kind of like that. I mean, or maybe we'll get questions on that. That one's always intriguing. I would like to see, even if it's a conjunction, maybe there's other municipalities that like the same thing, but I think that one would really be on my radar for a bit of training on minor variances.
The Ontario Association of Communities of Adjustment had a really great training course that we actually signed our committee up for. And it was 6 or 7 modules with videos and quizzes and a final test, and you get a certificate. And it was very cost effective, and I think our committee members really got a lot out of it. So that would probably be the most cost effective way to get everyone trained on that. And then we could always come back in a group setting and have a dialogue.
Yeah, that would be good or something. I mean, I don't want to speak for other councilors, but I think it would be beneficial to all of us too.
That might, yes.
Whenever, I mean, it doesn't have to be tomorrow, but just whenever we can help. Yeah, I would really enjoy it.
Very good.
Okay, so if there's nothing else, I'll take a second to the motion that was presented by Councilor Ward, Mayor Watson. Any other questions? All in favor? Perfect, thank you very much. And last but not least, it's up to you for the tree replacement program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I want to identify the specific recommendations. This came forward based on a request from council to take a look at a tree replacement program. Myself, as well as our manager of the facilities, went out to Pine Needle Farms in Pontypool and met with the owner there, who was very, very helpful and very informative. So our plan at this point is to have a campaign. He has provided me with tree options that would work. Some a variety of trees. I think we had 6, as well as a variety of sizes. So he's given me a bit of an idea of cost, but he's going to come forward with some additional information on tree planting as well as specific costs. And our thought is if we can put this out to the community, we can offer these options to order. They would have to have their orders in by the end of August, and then we would have them delivered to the township and have them available for pickup sometime in September. We talked about the size, and obviously, you know, seedlings often don't get planted, they don't survive. So we looked at 2-gallon pots and 3-gallon pots. My initial thought is that, you know, we will look for a charge of a 2-gallon pot of $5 and a 3-gallon pot of $10, which is substantially lower than what the cost of the tree is. But it does put some onus back then on the resident to actually plant it. It doesn't end up just sitting and not ever going into the ground. He was really good to talk about how those plantings have to happen, and I'm not much of a gardener, so I said we're going to need that information for all those people who are like me that don't know what they're doing when they get these trees. So I'm waiting for him to do that. I did have some discussion with Orca as well, so I may go to Orca and ask if they want to provide some information, even if they can do a short clip of video so that we can do some kind of a marketing campaign. Based on the funding that we received, we thought $10,000 would probably generate 200 to 250 trees, depending on which ones they chose. We would obviously take the revenue that was provided from the orders and put it back into the program so we can maximize the number of trees that can be delivered. Certainly, we'll have to put a maximum per household. As indicated, I did say we would request that they're residents. We would request that they confirm that they're being planted in the township and they're not being taken back to the primary residence outside of the township. And I'm looking for council feedback as well as the approval of that 10,000. If for some reason we end up with a larger take up, and we think it's beneficial to ask for some additional funds, we'll come back and do that. But I think $10,000 should be sufficient to be able to put those trees back in the community.
Questions, comments from council? Mayor Watson.
Through the chair, I think this is great. I'm excited about this from the get, and I can't wait to see. I did hear from a local arborist who had identified that oak wilt has now been found in the Niagara region, which similar to emerald ash borer, is a disease that will perhaps harm our oak canopy at some point as it migrates across the province. So I see that oaks are on your list. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing given the situation. But I've got a couple of links that were recently, like this morning, sent to me about this disease from the ministry that I can forward on. We may choose to not offer oaks as an option if it is something where they're going to be weak. We know the next 3 years or so it's going to hit the region that we don't invest in.
Through the chair, I'll double check on that for sure.
Anything else?
No, through the chair, I said sounds like a great program, and I like the suggestion of putting that $10,000 towards local people who are willing to put trees in.
Right, did they say anything about, like, I'm not a gardener or tree planter or anything either. Did they say it was up many times, there's an awful time to plant trees that they're gonna have the best chance to grow, like, is it spring, summer, fall? Like, you're saying get them in September, and I'm thinking, okay, that's, buried to the every time to root before the cold weather kicks in, and like that, so.
So we specifically asked for trees that would be successful in the Douro-Dummer area, as well as trees that would be successful in a fall plant. So he was, like I said, very, very knowledgeable, and this is the tree farm. So, although it is a Pontypool, they source the nursery. So we're gonna get the best deal to go through there. But he took us all through the property, showed us where all the trees were, and they start them from seedlings and they grow them, and he had indicated that those ones, he probably showed us about 10, and I said, narrow that down to the hardiest party, and let's cap it at 5 or 6, because I think then there's just too much decision and people won't know which direction to go. So he's provided those options, and once we have the costs in place, we can finalize exactly what those are. But they should be the most successful options for the municipality in temporary.
All right, then, make motion, are you gonna make that motion that you just spoke of a few minutes ago? All right, and second by Councilor Report. Any other questions, comments? All in favor? Good, perfect, thank you very much. New business requested for next meeting. Is there anything that council would like specifically brought to the next meeting? Seeing no hands, no closed session. Next meeting, regular meeting of council, August 1st, and our next committee for the whole would be August 8th, same time, 10 o'clock in the morning. And I would just like to throw in there that to all staff, thank you very much for these meetings, made the whole thing a little yes and no, but whether we should start them up again, but like we've covered some really good ground today, like we have. We can't do a council meeting, I know we used to put in the committee reports, you didn't have time to delve into them in a council meeting without making the council meeting way too long. This format to me, and I just speak for me, but works great, and I really want to say my appreciation to staff for putting these reports together and answering questions that we have and coming up with ideas and options for us to look at, so thank you very much. Anything else? No? All right, well then I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Mayor Watson, Mayor Nelson, all in favor? Thank you very much, and look at that time.
Right, that's true.
Do I know how to vote meeting or what? Did I say wrong? Perfect. That was great.
Sorry, are we adjourned?
You're adjourned. Oh, all in favor, right, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We're all just walking.